Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Sonshine Boys. You're back with Drew.
And Tyler.
And we are excited to be with you as we hop back into John. Today we will be picking up in John chapter 9, but I don't want to lose where we've been coming from. And so we have seen in John 1, we have seen in John 2, 3, all the way through 9 really, so I could just say 1 through 8. This reoccurring theme that Jesus continues to claim, I am the light of the world. And last week we saw this incredible dialogue. If you missed last week's episode, I encourage you, go back and listen to it because it baffled me and it's something that I had never learned before. That Jesus gives this harsh truth, but it's in love, but it was abrasive, but in love to these religious leaders. And he says, you think your father is Abraham, it is not, this is why. You think your father is God, it is not, or you would recognize me as his son. You are actually living as though your father is the devil. And what he identifies as characteristics of the devil is that he's a liar. He's a liar and full of death, right? Wherever he comes, death is coming. And he's saying that God is the complete opposite and the antithesis of that. And wherever God is, and I'm talking of the Father at this point, is life and is truth. And then if we look later into John, we're going to see that Jesus is going to make this claim about himself. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And so for these religious leaders that have made their entire life, their justification for eternity on their own works, on their heritage, Jesus says, you are missing the point. This is a relationship, not a religion. And over in this conversation, he has to remind them, you don't see this because what I speak is true. You don't understand this because what I speak is of spirit. And now, I think intentionally, they are spiritually blind. We get to hear about a physically blind person. So Tyler, if you could take us, John chapter 9, verses 1 through 7.
Gotcha. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Jesus, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. After saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. Go, he told him, wash in the pool of Siloam. This word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing.
So, incredible miracle of physically blind to physically having sight. And I want to zoom in here on verse 2. And there's a lot that we still need to come back to, so we cannot be done there. Don't let me get distracted. I will. But verse 2 specifically interests me because it's unlike the Samaritan woman, which the religious leaders are setting a trap. It's unlike the question about what do we do with taxes, right? Mm-hmm. Jesus so eloquently render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and unto God what is God's. It's not one of those questions that is designed to entrap. And Luke is full of those. I know we're in John, but Luke is chock full of those. Eventually, Jesus answers so many times that the religious leaders are like, okay, let's not ask him any more questions. We're tired of losing.
Yeah, we're done.
And Jesus is like, no, let me ask you one. But that's not what's happening here. That's different. And it stands out to me because it is the 12 that ask a question and clearly are wrong in their assumptions in the question. And again, this is something Jesus does regularly, but they ask him, who sinned, this man or his parents? And their question is, well, he was born blind. So could he have sinned in the womb? Could he have sinned at a young age? Did it have to be the parental sin? Did they know a sin that was going to come? They're like, how does this all work? And Jesus is saying, you've got it all wrong. What you are assuming, and this is, again, Jesus does it so well, we ask questions with our beliefs intertwined. Mm-hmm. And we don't always recognize we do it, but it's called assumptive language, and we're all guilty of it. I just made an assumptive statement, and we're all guilty of it, right? So here it is, and what Jesus is saying is your underlying precedent is that he is blind, and that's a negative. That this is somehow a punishment or a repercussion of a sinful world. And really what the disciples are beginning to ask him here is this question that we have to wrestle with today. Why is there evil and brokenness in this world? All right, go ahead, Tyler. Give us some wisdom and insight on that.
Yeah, well,
That's a simple enough question.
Yeah, well, it's a hard question that a lot of people have tried to answer in many different ways throughout, I don't know, the last 2,000 years.
Yeah.
Well, and plus, as we can see. But I think in times like this, it's very clear that you can just go back to the Word and what Jesus says here. So in verse 3, I'll read it again. It says, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned." Pause. So with that, he's just stating that sin is not what caused this, right? It's not something that, sinned in the womb, so he earned this, right? A lot of times when, I know for me personally, you think of, I deserve this, or you've earned this. And with the honor-shame society that they are in, it's very respect-driven, and so you earn respect. It's very rarely given. And so for this, this is me reading into it, I would assume that they would be like, what do you mean? Because this is something that even going back into the Old Testament, right, when somebody had sinned, it was discussed that it was carried down through, it could be carried down through generations.
Third and fourth generation. Yeah.
Yes. And so for that, you could read into this and assume that with somebody being blind.
Right. And so Jesus, again, immediately just flips the script on them. And I think you're right in saying that you're right. Jesus' words are better than anything we're ever going to come up with, okay? There is no I think to that. That one I will say with the utmost confidence. But there's this mind shift change that is taking place here that Jesus is trying to desperately teach the religious leaders in John 8. Now he's trying to teach his 12. He's saying, you view good and bad. Now, even for us to ask, why is there evil in this world? If we want to be intellectually honest with ourselves and we're not trying to win some debate, but actually pondering and questioning the universe, how it works, and the like, then we must recognize that our mere ability to determine good and evil must come from somewhere. It can't be arbitrary. I can't say that murder is evil and for you to say it's good. If there is no absolute, then for you to say it's good, it's just as accurate for me to say it's evil if it's just our personalities and opinions. There must be an absolute somewhere defining good and evil. And so when this question comes to light, typically what I have found, why is there evil in this world if God is all good? Why is there evil in this world if God is all powerful? And the questions we must answer because God does claim to be both. And if we can prove that he is not one or the other, then he is not the God of the Bible that he claims to be. And so if that is the case, why does all of this evil exist, right? And these are the questions we have to ask. But what Jesus begins to answer is how do you know that's evil? Because you think that blindness is evil, and in this case it's not. Mm-hmm. And so what is our definition of good and evil? I believe is the beginning point of wrestling with that question. And like you said, Scripture says it better than I ever could. If we flip over here to Romans 12, verses 1 and 2 read this way. And this is Paul writing to the church. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the miracles of God, to present your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and acceptable to God. This is your true and spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you might test and approve what God's will is, God's good, perfect, and pleasing will. And so before we can ultimately answer the question, why is there evil, we must begin to have our minds transformed to be like God's, to understand what he is teaching. And for Jesus, his answer to his disciples are, you think that this blindness is meant for evil, that this is unfair, unjust, but this man is now going to be forever remembered in all of history for God's glory to be on display. And if we really believe God is who he is, then which one of us would not give up my sight that I might be used for God's glory in such a way? It is the Old Testament law that they should have known. If your eye causes you to stumble, it's better to gouge it out. And so they should be understanding this, but they're not quite there yet. And I give them all grace and patience because we should be understanding this, and I'm not quite there yet. But ultimately, what Jesus is saying is, if there is good, it is because my Father is good. And so whatever he does is best, even if you don't see it that way. Hard truth, 2 verses. So told you there's other things there, verses 3 through 7 we need to get to, but I didn't want to shy away from that question. The disciples are asking, why is this evil happening? Jesus is like, you're wrong. That's not evil. Now the flip side of that in our culture today, we're typically they were very quick to call things evil that were not inherently evil. We are now very quick to call everything good that very likely is evil. And we don't want to be judgmental. We don't want to be harsh. We don't want to call people sons of Satan. Like, this is not something I feel awkward even joking about it, right?
Well, we've had this conversation earlier, right? With love instead of good or evil, right? But we've as a society taken and transformed what that word actually is, and now it has. How often on a day-to-day do you like, that's pretty good?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah, it's taking something that was a foundational piece of their culture, and now we use it for something completely different.
Yeah, and it makes sense. So if you, and again, this is my military background, so take that out of theology and let it be what it is. It makes sense in a war setting, militaristically anyway. If the direct approach isn't working, if I don't have more firepower, if I've got to come up with another strategy, right? And so Satan's strategies were pretty straightforward, right? I'm going to tempt Adam and Eve. Moses is up getting the 10 Commandments. God has delivered them out of Egypt. They've seen plagues that, by the way, the first 4 affected them, 4 or 5, and then didn't affect them, and certainly not the 10th one. And they've seen the protection of God. They've seen the army of Pharaoh with chariots coming after them, and God sending a wind to open the seas and then closing on their enemies. This has literally just happened as they've gone through the wilderness with fire and cloud. And then, oh, Moses is taking too long. Aaron, make me a golden calf. Satan directly is going, you need to worship, you need a God, and the one you're serving is not good enough. And now he's switched tactics to, he wouldn't give us a golden calf to worship. We wouldn't worship it. That would be weird. What he will do is, there's no harm sitting in front of your phone for a few hours. It's not a God. You're not worshiping anything. Oh, there's no big deal if you play that game instead of doing this. No big deal if it's not a God. You're not really worshiping, are you?
We've had this conversation with the youth many a time, right? What you put your time towards is what you're going to get out of it, right? So when it comes to what you're referencing being on your phone there, that's still an idol, right? You might not think of it because, like you were saying, where what a lot of people think of idol worship, they think of like Baal, they think of like Behor, like the like evil deities. They don't think of, oh, I'm just going to sit here, I'm going to watch some TV. Yeah. But think about what you're watching. Think about why you're watching it. Think about what you're giving up by watching it. Here's a question. When's the last time you cracked open your Bible instead of something else?
I will tell you, I have been very bad at that historically, and I'm not sure I have the right motives that I'm better at it, so I'll share with you my mixed motives, and some of it is just I'm a very achievement-driven person. We've had this conversation. Yeah. And so, like, the best thing for me is the YouVersion Bible app has a yearly read-through chronological, but it can tell you how many days ahead or behind you are on check marks, and it literally check marks when I read a passage. And you haven't missed a day all year. We're early in February as we record this, so don't be too impressed, okay? But there have certainly been at least 3 or 4 times that I clicked on, not so much that I wanted to hear God's word, but I'm like, I want to keep my streak. So I say that and to say this, the motivation is not completely pure, and I'm asking God to still work on that. But I have found something that is naturally within me to motivate me. And so I know that what I'm naturally going to do at the end of the day when I get home at 9 o'clock is I'm going to pull out my phone to decompress. And if I can turn that into the Bible app instead of, I don't know, Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, whatever the new... I'm not hip to it right now. Monopoly Go. Whatever the new game is now. Whatever you guys are playing out there. Send that in the comment section. Let me know. No, don't. I don't need any more distractions, actually. Whatever that game is, if I can replace that. And so likewise, if you know you have that built-in quiet time to sit down with the TV, to sit down with whatever, are you willing to spend that with God? Because it's already built in.
Here's a question for you. And sorry, we're getting a little off track, but I think this is an important question with where we're at right now. So say that you sit down, you're going to read, but you're not doing it with a motivation like you were saying before to specifically read. You're wanting to get that goal. When you're starting off, is that a problem?
So I would ask you a question in return, and that is this: if you have to plan a date with your wife, does it make it mean you love her any less?
No is the answer. is the answer?
Because she might hear this. Right. Is there are times where life gets busy and chaotic, and I have to schedule dates with my wife. And she knows this, so she can hear this on recording. In the first 10, 15 minutes of the date, I'm like, I still have stuff that need to get done. I still, like, why am I here? Like, there's work that is not complete, and I'm not actually present there. But as the date goes on, I'm like, oh, this is so much better. I would rather be here with my, you know what, that can wait.
I can wait.
And so I would say that your motivation does matter. God cares incredibly about the presence of your heart. I mean, that's really what John 8 was screaming about. That's what Jesus is teaching. But God also has the ability to change and soften our hearts if we meet him willingly. And so I do think that God is still honored and does show up, even though I'm there for a streak. If I'm like, hey, God, can you please course correct my heart? That it's better that I spend that time that way anywhere else. Even if I come not completely right, I trust God to make my heart right. I don't know if that... And so we make that with God, like, oh, if I don't come with the perfect motive, then it doesn't count. It's okay to plan dates with God. I mean, my wife's flattered when I say, hey, Friday night we're going out no matter what happens. She's like, oh, okay. Like, I think God is also likewise excited that, hey, God, 9 o'clock I'm going to be there. And I don't know what version that's going to be, but I'm going to be there.
But I'm going to be there.
And he'll meet you there, and he'll transfer that heart. So it's very much that relationship. And again, we have to come back to that. That's what John 8 was about, is it's not about this religious practice. And I think that's why Jesus does what he does in this passage. So I found it interesting. I don't want to skip over this. You began to read verse 3. I want to give all of the answer that Jesus responds to the disciples, which is really 3 through 5. Jesus answered, it was not that this man sinned or his parents. So, no, your assumptions are wrong. Let me explain. But that the works of God might be displayed in him. This is a powerful glory, right? This is a good thing. It looks evil, but it's good. So much on that. Long story short, I'll tell you this. Change your perspective. If God doesn't give you what you want, one of two things. Are you willing? Are you willing to realize that what you want might not be what's best and that God has a better plan in store for you? And the second way I found to actually understand that more than some cheap words on a podcast, but in my life, is instead of asking God for what I want, I ask God how I can be used for someone else. And then I begin to see what I really needed. And it normally happens as a byproduct of me loving someone else, not being selfish about me. Moving on. Verse 4. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. And so Jesus is concluding this for them. You're still looking at this physical side of things, and you're missing that I am here. You're asking, why is he blind? And you're missing, I'm going to heal. You're asking, why is it broken? And you're missing, I'm here to heal it. I'm here to fix it. And what you need to set your eyes on is not the problem, but the one who has the power to change it. And ultimately, he will or he won't based on what's best for the people involved. But it's interesting to me that he goes on, 6 and 7, and he spits in the ground and makes mud to heal. But he didn't have to do that, and I know that, because he heals another blind guy in Mark 10, and he doesn't do that.
No.
Mark 10, it's 46 through 52, there's this healing. I'm going to read it. And they came to Jericho, and as he was leaving Jericho with his disciples and a great crowd, Bartimaeus, a blind beggar, the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside. And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began crying out, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." And many rebuked him, telling him to be silent. But he cried out all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." And they called him, the blind man, saying to him, "Take heart, get up, he is calling you." And throwing off his cloak, he sprang up and came to Jesus. And Jesus said to him, "What do you want me to do for you?" And the blind man said to him, "Rabbi, let me recover my sight." And Jesus said to him, "Go your way, your faith has made you well." And immediately he recovered his sight and followed him on the way. There's no mud. There's no spit. It seems like a much more sanitary healing option. Maybe that's just me being grossed out by I don't want mud in my eyes, but I guess if I was blind and I get healing, I probably wouldn't complain. Anyway, so it's interesting. Why mud? Why spitting?
So, I'm not smart enough to know this. So, but I've been reading a commentary on John. And one of the things that was brought up because I was like, why saliva? Why is that important here? And one of the things that it was mentioned is that in this time frame, if saliva, and they use the term spittle, which I thought that was just like something that you used with a kid. So a
little bit spittle.
Yeah, a little spittle. But when it was somebody like an important figure, right, like a rabbi or a doctor, that was used to be put in medicines, saying that, if it's somebody of high esteem, high authority, it must have healing properties of some sort. They have been, what's the term? They've been acknowledged by God to be in the position that they are. And so with that, they would use it into a lot of different medicines and it'd be put into a lot of different salves. As we read in Mark, right, this wasn't necessary. Jesus didn't have to do this. But think about the people that are around him as well, that are seeing this take place, that would be able to recognize what's happening here.
Yeah, and he's bold. Don't forget, in the last chapter, he makes this statement in John 8:58. Jesus said to them, "Truly, truly," which is his listen up, "I say to you, before Abraham was, I am." And so it is just 4 chapters ago in John 5 that they are getting very upset. And by they, I mean the religious leaders, yes, even some of the crowd, that Jesus is healing on the Sabbath. And so now he goes beyond healing on the Sabbath, and when he spits, he makes mud, which is one of their religious rules that is added, right? You cannot make mud on the Sabbath, which is just so funny. So if you ever see somebody on their way into church on a Sunday and they spit, make sure they do it on the pavement. Not the real point, but preacher joke. Moving on. They are upset about this, and I don't want to miss verse 7 because we're going to get back to them being upset here in verse 8. He's immediately healed and sent to this pool, which means sent. And I don't want to preach what isn't there, but I do want to make this point. There seems to be an awful habit of Jesus healing people, forgiving sins, and then giving them the command and the commission, now go. We just read about the woman who condemns you. I condemn you neither. Now go and sin no more. And now he is sent, and all the way back in Mark, as we just read, he now got up and followed him. And so it's this habit, when Jesus shows up in your life and we encounter him in a real way, the very next thing that's going to happen is we're going to be given the opportunity to partner with him in his mission and his ministry.
Something that I don't want to be missed there, right? Go, the action of going. It's not something that like, okay, you have this happened, stay where you are. No, it's an action. It's something to go do. Yeah,
and that go doesn't always mean physically, geographically relocating yourself, but there is some change that needs to physically happen.
Yeah.
You mind if I read 8 through 12, because this is really just the crowd getting confused?
Go for it.
All right. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar were saying, "Is this not the man who used to sit and beg?" Some said, "Yes, it is he." Others said, "No, he just looks like the man." He kept saying, "I am the man." So they said to him, "Then how are your eyes opened?" He answered, "The man called Jesus made mud and anointed my eyes and said to me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' So I went and washed and received my sight." And they said to him, "Well, where is he?" He said to them, "I don't know." I wish he would have said to them, "I don't know, I can't see him." I'm such a bad person. So the neighbors are like, "You can't possibly be this man that was blind." And he's going, "Yes, I am." "Well, how did this happen?" And he tells them the whole story.
Yeah, walks him through it.
And now their question is, okay, well, where is Jesus? I don't know where he is. Now, if you could pick up for us 13 through 17, they're going to bring in the Pharisees, because this is what happens when you're confused. You got to go get the preacher, right?
Speaking from experience.
Yeah, I go get Jim a lot.
Yeah. All right, 13 through 17. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Now the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Therefore the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. "He put mud on my eyes," the man replied, "and I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath." But others asked, "How can a sinner perform such signs?" So they were divided. Then they turned again to the blind man. "What have you to say about him? It was your eyes he opened." The man replied, "He is a prophet."
This is not the first person to call Jesus a prophet. In John. Is it John 3 is the woman at the well? No. Oh, John 4.
4.
But
Yeah. 3, I think, is Three is Nicodemus.
If you remember, Jesus tells her, she tells Jesus about his life, and Jesus is like, "Yes, you're right," and she's like, "Okay, you are some sort of prophet, right?" But they're missing it, and this is this incredible conversation that I was able to have yesterday with the gentleman that was at church. He actually had this ridiculous background of an Islamic faith, and now is saying that gets you. There's a lot of similarities, but it's not the truth, and he's like, I need that extra bit of truth that they're missing, and that, of course, is that Jesus is divine. And which is very, very, and I know we've quoted Lewis before on this, liar, lunatic, and Lord, but this is now the second or third time that they're trying to say, maybe he is someone, but not quite God. Of course, the problem with that is it was just 20 verses ago that he's like, I'm
I
God. Anybody can make that claim, but if you make that claim, either you are who you say you are, and you are God, or you are not. But if you are not, then you are dishonest and a liar, and you cannot claim to be a useful, good teacher, moral prophet. Everything you have to say must now be thrown out and dismissed because you're a liar.
Yep.
However, if you actually are, then merely being a good man is not merely enough, because a good man you can take advice from, you can listen to, but you do not bow down and worship.
They're trying to find the middle ground where there is no middle.
He's like, get out of the middle. Yes. Absolutely. I find it funny how different the response was from John 5 to John 9. So the healing of the officer's son happens at the end of John 4. The healing of the pool on the Sabbath happens at John chapter 5. And verse 9b tells us now that was the day of the Sabbath. So the Jews said to the man who had been healed, "It is the Sabbath, and it is not law for you to take up your bed." But he answers them, he told me to. Verse 14, afterward Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you are well. Sin no more, that nothing worse may happen to you." That commission to go. But there is no division in John 5 by the Pharisees and the religious leaders. In John 5, they're all convinced that he is breaking the law, that he is wrong, and that he is a problem. The division now happens in John 9. Same thing, same breaking of the Sabbath, same healing. Well, not the same healing, but a miraculous healing. And now, as you said, there's this division because they're beginning to ask, how? How, if he's not who he says he is he doing all of these miracles, right? Mm-hmm. All right, you told a man to get up and walk, he got lucky once. Now it's a habit. And so I want to point out this theme of John, even for these religious leaders, these ones that should have known better, that are eventually going to take him to the cross, of which, by the way, he knows, he is still loving them. And now, even some of them, there's a divide, even some of them are starting to believe because of the persistent pursuit of Christ. It's just so incredible. And that's the encouragement that I think I can leave us with today. Next week, we're going to get into the questioning of the parents and how the religious leaders deal with all of this. We are going to do our best to get through the rest of John chapter 9. But for this week, and what I want to leave you guys with is this, is Jesus still pursues. Don't think that he stopped pursuing in John 9. He didn't. And don't think that we're any less evil than the religious leaders. We're not. We were his enemy. And yet in the midst of that, he loves and he pursues. And so I want you to know that if you feel abandoned, alone, like you're a mistake, like you're broken and you don't know why, let me tell you, the one who heals is pursuing you in love today. Are you willing to stop and accept what he's offering? Any other closing words of thought there?
No, I mean, to jump off of what you're saying there, I mean, going back to what Jesus said, right? Going back to verse 5. So it's towards the end of what he was speaking. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. While he's in the world, he's still here. Physically, as the people of this time would know Jesus, no. But he's still here with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that presence is persistent. And we saw that last week. He'll stop there. He'll stop with persistent love. But he's going to love persistently. He won't force himself into that next step. But he's not going anywhere. He loves you. He's available. So
It's still the choice.
yeah. And I think that's an incredible place to be, that the creator of the universe loves us that much. So I'm just going to praise God for that. So
Amen.
if you have anything to add on that, go ahead. Father, thank you. Thank you that your love is so persistent. God, that even those of us that ought know better, that we've read your word, maybe we grew up in church, maybe, I don't know, we have the right background, you're still patient with us. That we are allowed to get it wrong and mess up, and you're still going to love us. Now, it's better when we obey. Absolutely better. You let us deal with consequences of our actions because you're a good, loving Father. But God, you don't write us off. You love us no matter how far gone we've been. But God, I also see likewise, as he's all throughout John talked to these religious leaders and these Pharisees, he's also talked to the Samaritan woman. He's also talked to the adulterous woman. He's also talked to these Romans and healed them. He's talked to these lame and got them up off their mat and walked. He's talked to the blind and the cripple. God, there's this incredible truth. He's walking around with these 12 eclectic group. Incredible truth. And that you love everyone where they are. But, as we've seen, you love them just too much to leave them there. And so you call them into something greater. And so God, what I ask for today, for each one of us listening, is that we do not simply seek your healing. We do not simply seek your blessing. We seek a relationship with you. And then we understand that relationship comes with a partnership in ministry. And God, when we do that, I think that's when our joy will be full. Thank you.
Amen.